welcome to The Upshot, a podcast for dads who try. For dads who are thinking about their legacy and don't want to miss out on all that fatherhood has to offer. I'm Kyle. I'll be joined by my good friend Shane, and we're excited to jump into today's conversation.
How did Jessica or you, or a combination of you two, land on Upshot?
That was all Jessica. She was Googling names for men's podcasts.
Yeah.
So we were working on, what do we want to call this? And she's Googling, and we were trying to think about alternatives around goals, outcomes, who do we want to be, legacy.
Yeah.
That type of language, and somehow she came across Upshot, and we're like, hey, I've actually hardly ever heard that word used ever, but it seems to fit. So let's try it.
I honestly had no idea what it meant. When she said, hey, how does the Upshot sound? I'm like, I have no idea, because what is the Upshot?
What was your first reaction to what that word meant?
Well, first of all, I was disappointed that the dad pod was taken. That was disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
The Upshot has slowly grown on me. Do you know, I Googled the word Upshot and YouTubed it, and there's actually a disc golf video series called The Upshot.
Yep.
So we have competition.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we can provide some value.
I think so. And I think maybe we can get some of that traffic from the disc golfers. Maybe they'll want to come listen to ours too.
I think there's a lot of dads that enjoy a good disc golf game.
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm terrible at it.
I'll teach you.
People have
I'll
tried.
help you get better.
I don't think that's
Shane can't get any better.
No. Plus, I'm at that age where if you try to do anything with too much force, something gets injured. So every time I throw a disc, I'm like, okay, I just retired from disc golf. Never doing that again.
So, Shane, I think this is the part where I think you undersell yourself a little bit here. We went on a backpacking trip together, and I don't think you hurt yourself at all, and you were by far outperforming many people, including myself and Josh Montoya. And
well, it's not whether you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
It's whether others see whether or not you hurt yourself.
Okay.
I probably
Hold
took
your
a
cards
month.
close to the
right.
chest.
It took a month to recover. You guys just
Okay.
don't know that.
So the pride is
Yeah.
there's some pride there. Okay.
Yeah.
You just can't let
100%.
us in. Okay.
Correct.
Well, you fooled me.
Well, good.
That's true.
I did my best.
Well, this is the Upshot. Today we want to really introduce what do we mean by using this word, the Upshot.
Yeah.
Podcast for dads who try. And want to spend a little time getting to know one another, so that the men listening can maybe build some trust with us and hopefully like us a little bit.
Yeah,
to want
maybe
to keep
want to
listening.
come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the goal for today. So we'd love to jump into just a way of introducing one another.
Okay.
So just ask a couple of questions here.
Sure.
Shane, what's a purpose you're chasing right now in life?
When I saw you write that question down, it terrified me. It's a scary question, and I wasn't sure if you're like, hey, what's a purpose I'm chasing today, or what's a purpose I'm like ideally trying to chase on a regular basis?
And I'm not going to tell you what I meant by it. You can just answer it however you want.
But you're going to answer this question as well, right?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
A purpose I'm chasing is not losing any of my children. No. My life has been tremendously impacted by community. I grew up in a Christian home. I went to church every week, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evening, and all of the days in between, it seemed like at times. But I never really truly experienced the freedom, the hope, the joy, the security that comes from this thing called Christianity until I experienced authentic community and the power of authentic relationships with other men, and it changed my life. And so the reason why I say that is when I go back to like, what is the purpose that I'm pursuing? I want to help other people experience what I experienced through community. And I think, God designed you, me, our producer Luke over there, for community. And it's hard to find and experience that today. And my purpose is really just doing for others what someone did for me and multiplying it. So long story short, I want to help people experience. I want to create the kind of community that inspires people to follow Jesus and the freedom that comes from that. Is that the kind of purpose you're looking for?
Pretty profound. No, yeah, I love it. It's great.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that's motivating, Shane, that you even have an ability to articulate that pretty clearly. I think especially as we talk about a podcast around like Upshot, like, which we'll get into more of that, but like knowing what you're trying to accomplish or knowing what's driving you is really important. And so I love that you're able to articulate that just in life. That's something you're chasing right now. I think a purpose I'm chasing right now is to fully develop my purpose. Like I say, fully develop, to become more aware, to better articulate. I'm in a season of discernment. Like, okay, God, what is my calling?
Yeah.
What are my gifts?
Yeah.
And then even a piece of what's your timing in all of this, so that I can really feel like I can fully move, live, run, grow, pursue.
Yeah.
And so I get glimpses of purpose every day through my work, at home with our family. And it's got something to do with simply helping people. I keep having this word of like champion in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, not that I want to be the winner, but I want to champion, my wife and see her fully thrive, see her fully live out her gifts. At work, it's easy for me to assume a role of like, hey, what's your vision, idea? What are you trying to accomplish? And I'm going to go champion that.
Yeah.
How do I help you find success in that?
Yeah.
And so I'm still figuring out how to wrap my head around what that looks like, but that's been a fun kind of journey for me in the last several months, last year, of figuring out like how to have a purpose of championing other people.
Sure. Sometimes you think, do you ever get caught up in, I have to have the powerful purpose statement, meaning like it has to be a phrase that looks good above my fireplace that we can all like stand in awe of that statement. It's memorable. And sometimes we get so caught up and it has to be the right sentence before I can really pursue it. You understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I resist that a
Good.
little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think sometimes, it's not something to be framed. It's something to be chased.
And I think, and it's messy, right?
Us. Yeah, totally.
And if you're waiting around until you can find the perfect purpose statement, you're never gonna.
Yeah,
you're never gonna find it.
I think in my journey of wrestling, it's been more a wrestling around like, well, who am I championing? Like, just some more definition to how does that look like? What are my gifts I can use to leverage in that process? How am I applying that? And so it's less about like, pretty words. Yeah, I think it's more of just definition around the application of purpose.
Yeah. For a podcast, sometimes pretty words are nice, right?
Sometimes. A lot of times.
So to ask you a follow-up question, how are you doing when it comes to championing your kids? What does that look like to champion two little girls?
Somebody just turned on the thing and said, hey, maybe should we ask the question?
We just have to restart the whole podcast because a buzzer just went off.
Somebody hit the call button over there. I haven't seen one of these things since 1970.
Can we fire the producers?
Yeah.
Wait, he's a volunteer.
We're doing our job.
Don't you just have like two buttons to push over there? Well, yeah, now it's three.
How hard is it? Yeah.
All right, Luke's never buying me another free coffee again.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't need it. You're a country club member.
So going back to the question,
Yeah.
you have two little daughters.
Yes.
Filled with a whole lot of energy.
Yes.
What is it like to champion those two little girls?
My first reaction is like, we have a lot of fun. like we're in a season of life right now where well, first of all, the challenge is I'm learning to discipline. Like everything I could nitpick into like, okay, you didn't do that right, or you didn't respond quickly enough, or blah, all that stuff. And so in the midst of a season where I'm working really hard to teach them how to behave or to obey, to be obedient, and to take care of their things, to respect us, we try to have a lot of fun. And so how do we explore who they're becoming through just laughing, imagination, playing, wrestling, like these little girls love to wrestle all the time too. So
what
it's like,
kid doesn't?
I guess it's a kid thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't compare it to boys on my own, but you know, the oldest she really thinks she's Spider-Man right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
She calls me the Hulk, so it's great.
So does the Spider-Man attack the Hulk?
Yeah.
When the Hulk is not ready to be attacked?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the funnest thing though. She'll just walk by and she'll just say, "Hey Hulk," and just keep walking through the room.
That's fantastic.
You know, so we have fun, and I think that like championing them right now means like just it's an exploration of who are them independently on their own, and primarily like how do we have fun? How do we just laugh and play? And that seems to drive. It makes all the other work of parenting them it's still work, but it's so much more enjoyable. Yeah.
And I think one thing that is required in order to have fun is your presence. I don't think you can have fun without you being present with your children. And it's exciting for me to sit across from another dad with two little girls who is prioritizing presence through the way he's having fun with his daughters. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Don't stop.
Thank you.
Continue to being the Hulk.
Yeah.
And let your daughter be Spider-Man.
I will.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
when my kids were little, like we have 6 kids, you know this.
Yeah,
Some people listening don't know this, but we had 4 boys like back to back to back to back. And so there was an age where I think we had 4 boys under the age of 6, maybe even under the age of 5. And so we would wrestle, like our living room was the cage continuously. And so we'd come up with games that that hopefully didn't result in trips to the hospital, and sometimes they may have ended up in trips to the hospital. But one of the wrestling games we'd play is like, how can the 4 boys keep dad from standing up? And there was like no rules. Like they would be jumping off of couches with flying knees. Like so my boys would learn to work together. This is like a good team building exercise because they learn to utilize their strengths and their weaknesses or overcome their weaknesses. So some of the smaller boys would get up on the couches, and as dad was starting to stand up, they would like jump with flying knees, knowing that they didn't have the weight to hold me down, but they could use the power of pain to keep me on the ground. And as these boys got bigger, this turned into like our thing. It's like, hey, tonight, Dad, can we play that game where the 4 of us try to keep you down? And so it was, it's memories.
Yeah.
A lot of laughter, a lot of fun, sometimes some
bruises,
crying.
some crying.
Yeah, and then when Lander joined in, because he's so much younger, there was this, let's try to keep Dad down still, but I had to keep Lander alive in this process. So I'm trying to shield Lander from flying knees and punches at the same time of trying to stand up with these 4 older boys now, almost as big as I am, trying to keep me down.
Well, who was crying in all of this?
Everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. As those boys got larger, the ratio of their crying to my crying changed tremendously.
That's what I was imagining.
Yeah. But I mean, if you ask my boys, like, hey, what are the memories you have of childhood? Like when they were smaller?
Yeah.
It's those moments.
It's those.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I think about, I had 2 brothers, so there's 3 boys. And if I look back at my childhood, time at home, it's very clear to remember the moments in the living room. My mom was a math teacher, but she stayed home with us for a while. But she'd have to tutor like college students in the evenings when my dad could be home to watch us.
Yeah.
And so she would be holed up in the kitchen with students like all night.
Yeah.
Just tutoring, and be the 4 boys in the living room, and we were playing
chaos,
similar things. Yep.
Yeah.
It was just a full out wrestling match.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. Like that was like how we bonded. That's how we had fun as a family.
Yeah,
So
we had another
I can
game
imagine.
where they had to try to prevent me from getting across the room. That was also another fun one. It's like, can you get from this side of the living room to that side of the living room in 60 seconds? No rules.
No rules.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, do you have another question for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a big goal or dream that you'd love to accomplish in life?
You mean, it's along the same lines. You know, I work for a church here at North Point, and going to church Sunday morning. I don't know how to say this right. It's not the same priority that people used to have. Like 20 years ago, when I grew up, which was more than 20 years ago, you just went to church Sunday morning. Like there was no questions asked. This is just what you did. You check that box week in and week out. Now we live in a world today where I might go to church. Maybe if I got nothing else to do, people might choose church. And it's just, priorities are changing. And in the midst of all that, like, what is church? Is it a Sunday morning destination, or is church a community of people that are trying to pursue what it looks like to follow Jesus and be encouraged by one another? So, like, I dream of helping create a church where people can find community that helps them experience belonging, pursue growth, and live out their purpose as they discover this person of Jesus. And I know, so it goes in line with like this purpose, right? I mean, obviously your purpose and dream should line up. So you talk about my purpose is I want to create community for others. And then my dream is actually seeing that lived out.
Yeah.
Especially, for dads and men. I know how hard it is to be a father. And if men are anything like me, you are reminded over and over and over again that you fail. Like every day as a father, there are moments where I'm like, man, I screwed that up. I wish I'd go back and do that differently. And I know how hard that is being a dad when you get to see all of the times you fail as a dad, but yet having to do that on your own, like having no other dads to talk to about that, or maybe, sure, you might be in a group with other men, but maybe you have to put on a mask or try to perform or pretend that you're being a better father than you really are. Like, I want to create a safe place where dads who screw up can go have a place where they can feel comfortable talking about their mistakes and their flaws, and and where the other men in the circle aren't expecting them to perform better, or that's the end goal. It's just, we want to create a circle where you might be respected more for being vulnerable and sharing some of the messes you're going through. And the men aren't necessarily there to fix you, but they're wanting to walk this journey of fatherhood with you. It make sense?
Totally.
So I dream of creating communities like that for dads, for men, for couples, families.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I think it's important to note that's the whole point of this podcast, Shane, is an extension of not only just the purpose you've articulated, but the big dream you're trying to create, which is to help other men and fathers have conversations that are oriented around who we're becoming, how we're showing up, the work of God in our lives. And, that's the whole point of this whole thing. And so I think we have the right person sitting in the chair across from us. Not that you have all the answers or perfect.
Don't ever say that again.
six children, and a lot of experiences in fatherhood, specifically in marriage, fatherhood as a man, a lot to share, whether that's wins or losses, right? But I think that it is important to, hear your experiences. I, on the other side of you, with 2 little girls at home, I deeply appreciate, not just your friendship, but also our conversations around fatherhood and your motivation to facilitate these types of interactions, conversations, and engagements among other men. It's really powerful, and you can tell that that's your big dream. Like it's being lived out. It's pretty cool. So that's the hope for this whole podcast, is that it would inspire men wherever you are to join that conversation with other guys.
Yeah.
So,
well,
that's cool.
What's a dream that you have, Kyle?
Mine's not nearly as, it's less serious than that. I'll say that. But, you know, a big dream that I have is I want to do something really, really big and hard every year. There's a Japanese saying around this. I think it's called like misogi or misogi. I don't know how to say it. You can look it up. MISOGI.
Sounds like a food.
Yeah, kind of.
Uh-huh.
But it's this thing. It's this idea that like you go do something so hard one day a year, or like one time a year.
Yeah.
That like it challenges how you show up the other 364 days.
Yeah.
Right. And so. It's just that is such a new way of thinking for me. I've in the last year of my own life, I've experienced a little bit of an awakening to where I've realized I've spent way too much time being super comfortable and taking the path of least resistance and just kind of allowing my life to happen to me.
Yeah.
That I'm no longer comfortable doing that anymore. And so it started with like, I'm going to sweat every day on a walk because I would sweat going for a walk around the block.
Yeah.
To like, I'm going to run a little bit to, well, I need to run a race. I need to do something hard that I could never imagine doing. And so that has been a little bit of my journey that has helped me, I think, show up better as a person and has challenged my way of thinking about doing hard things, not taking a path of least resistance, and therefore being more present, being more, giving more attention to things that matter. So those big things can be like, maybe it's a mountain I want to climb, or a longer race to run, or, you know, I don't know. Who knows?
What's the hard thing this year? Do you have like something in mind?
I have a trail marathon that I'm going to run at end of April.
And where is it?
In Burnett. Just up the road. It's way less exciting when I say where it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, hill country.
Sure.
Texas hill country.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. But some other things that I'm kind of like, well, I think I could do something bigger or harder too.
Yeah.
So I'm still scheming on that, but some other ideas are rattling around.
So do you have like a list of like, hey, here's 10 things that over the next 10 years I want to try, or is it every year you might come up with something different? Or do you have a list of hard things that you're working on?
No, there's no list.
Okay.
It's a very fluid process right now.
I mean, like if you just told me you were a father of 2 toddler girls, like that would be like, I've got my hard thing for the next 5 years.
Yeah, but I would want to sit maybe that's the point of this too. Like I'd want to sit some like, what does that look like? Sure. What is accomplishing something really hard in the next 5 years? Is it keeping them alive?
Yeah.
Is it like, you know, I don't know.
Gotcha.
How do you measure that? Keeping them out of the principal's office? I don't know. Like, so.
Well, good luck on your trail run in Burnett.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's going to be fun.
Will it be fun?
Yeah. I'm telling myself that.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, one more question, Shane, as we continue to get to know each other here and allow listeners to be introduced to who we are.
Yeah.
Can you share, instead of just telling us about like your job or your family and everyone's names, I thought it'd be fun why don't you just tell us a story about a memorable experience with your family?
Memorable isn't good, or memorable isn't bad?
It could be fun, funny, good, bad, lighthearted. Just something that maybe gives us a little glimpse into your life and your family.
Never know what will be the result of me sharing some of these things. Have you ever lost a child?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Nope.
It's going to happen. Well, maybe not.
I don't have 6.
Well, I have misplaced my children multiple times.
Okay.
There's one story that really stands out. So my wife and I and our kids were at Berry Springs Park in Georgetown. Have you ever been there? Mm-mm. It's beautiful. It's like a little diamond in the rough out in the northeast side of Georgetown.
Okay.
It's really pretty.
Berry Springs, yeah.
And so my wife and I went to this park with our family. We drove up in 2 cars. This is a key part of the story. I drove my little sedan. She drove the big, massive bus. And we're done the activity. We decided to switch cars for logistic reasons. When you have 6 kids, things are just happening and you're trying to get places. And so my wife took the car. I took the van with all of the kids. And we're loading the kids up. I give Matthew a bag of trash, and I asked Matthew, hey, can you go put this in the trash can over there? And this was a while ago, so Matthew was pretty small. He was, I want to say, somewhere between 6 and 8. I'm terrible with timelines. My wife will probably like tell you later on that he was 4 or that he was 10. I don't know. But I'm sitting in the driver's seat and I hear the door close, which to me signals Matthew is back in the car. And so I proceed to leave. Well, we get like 15 minutes down the road and I catch up to my wife on Highway 29 heading back to our house, and she does an abrupt U-turn right in front of me. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Where's she going? And I call her, and the only thing she says to me is, you left Matthew. and I turn around in the van, and like our kids, your kids kind of do things the same over and over again. They like consistency, routine. So they kind of have the same seat that they sit in all the time. And Matthew always sits next to Nathan. And so I turn around and I look at Nathan and I'm like, Nathan, where's your brother? And he's like, I don't know. And he doesn't have.
Nobody else cares.
No one cares that Matthew is not in the van. So here's what happened. Matthew, so one thing, this is a good piece of advice for dads. Make sure your kids know your cell phone number, or at least your wife's cell phone number. That's probably better. Make sure your kids know your wife's cell phone number. So Matthew went up to a stranger and asked if he could use their phone. And he tried calling Elena. And because Elena didn't recognize the number, of course she doesn't pick up. It was like, I think the second or third call that she finally okay, I need to pick this up. And all she heard was on the other side of this phone, Mommy. And of course, my wife, who knows me very well, knew instantly what had happened. Like, my husband, who I love, left my child at the park. And to add to the story, it turns out Matthew was running after the van, screaming in the parking lot, Dad, stop, wait. And I never heard him. And there are people, like I heard, that were all around watching this van leave with this child screaming behind the van trying to catch his dad. Yeah, it's one of my favorite.
And it took him 15 minutes to get you guys to turn around. Wow.
Yeah. Matthew's fine. In case you're wondering, he's fine. I think he's fine. Counseling is coming.
That's helped.
But I think he's fine. There was another story where I left Jonah at home when we went to church. And so Elena had to go early because she was leading, I think, Family Ministries at the time, Upstreet or Wambaland. And I walk into church with all of my kids lined up behind me, and we walk in, and my wife was standing right inside the door, and I walk in and my kids are following me. And Elena, without missing a beat, says, where's Jonah? And I don't even stop walking. I just knew as soon as she said it. I just keep going and I just turn around, don't even say anything. And I go back to the van, drive all the way home. Jonah is up in his room playing with Legos and he has no idea what's going on. I'm like, hey, Jonah, it's time to go to church. And he gets in the van with me. We start driving to church. He's like, where's everybody? I'm like, oh, they're already at church. It's no big deal. He didn't even know that I left him at home all by himself. It was fantastic.
So he needs less counseling.
Yeah. No, he needs counseling for other things that I've done to him. So, yeah. So there's a little bit about
someday.
Me.
Yeah, maybe I'll have one of those. I think it's easier to keep track of 2, but
sometimes
right now. Fun story about us. I think I was thinking this morning on my run. I think that the funnest story lately. We went on a camping trip in October. The 4 of us, our family, Jess and the 2 girls, and we towed a little travel trailer. And Maggie still talks about the camper, she thinks it's ours, and we just rented it, But and there's a story about how she locked herself, within 5 minutes of us getting this thing, she had locked herself inside, and that's a good part. I'll just tell that one. So I pull this trailer home. The girls are in the yard and they're so excited. Jess goes and puts Lucy, the little one, down for a nap. And, and then she's like, hey, I'm going to run to the store. Great. So Maggie and I were exploring this camper, and I'm like, well, I've got to do some work here, and your sister, I have a baby monitor. So we're moving stuff in, and eventually Lucy's ready to get up. So I'm like, Maggie, I just need you to sit here on the couch. And I had the Roku already hooked up to the little TV. So I'm like, have the hotspot on my phone.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't need you to watch, I don't know what she's watching, PJ Masks or something on the show. And just sit here in the camper. You love it. Sit here. Don't leave. Don't leave it. So then I run inside. I grab Lucy. She's mad. She wakes up mad. So I'm consoling her, getting her milk, whatever. I come back out, and I've got Lucy, the 18-month-old, in my arm, and I try to get into the camper, and it's locked. like completely. Start knocking, and I can hear Maggie inside saying, "Hey, Dad, I can't get out of the camper." I'm like, "I told you not to get up." She said, "Well, the show's quit working because the
Yeah.
hotspot in my phone, I took
Yeah.
it with me, and so my whole plan, was foiled within 30 seconds of me going inside. I
Yeah.
had no idea. So she's been locked inside this camper for a while, and so I'm like, okay, well, I've got the little one. I'm like, don't run in the street, just hang out over here. I'm trying to get Maggie to like crawl through a window. She can't quite get there.
Yeah.
The keys are hanging on a hook inside the door of
Yeah.
this camper. And so we haven't even left for this fun trip. And my child's locked in this camper.
Yeah.
We can't get her out. Jess at that moment pulls home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, don't freak out. But our child's locked in this thing and I can't get her out. And I don't know what she's getting into in there.
So what do you think a wife and a mother is going to do immediately after a husband tells her, don't freak out?
Well,
What's the first thing she's going to do?
She's going to freak out.
She's going to freak out.
But we've learned,
Mhm.
we've learned, like, I have to preface this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know that's my way of saying this is a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
But I need you to, I know I've broken trust, but
Yeah.
trust me. Like,
Yeah.
how do you
Sure.
say that? So she went to our neighbor's house across the street who had a very similar camper to try to like see if there was a key.
Yeah.
And eventually I just wrestled the door open, but it was fun. And of course Maggie was great. She thought it was the best
Yeah.
adventure ever.
Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm curious. The moment you realized that Maggie was locked in the camper, how quickly did you think, I need to get her out before Jessica gets back?
That was all of the urgency. It was
Yeah,
less.
it's
Maggie
not
was fine.
necessarily about Maggie.
No.
It's all about what is my wife going to
She
think.
was fine. It was like, yeah, she's gonna be home any minute.
Yeah, I
This
have
is
to
not
get her
good.
out before she's home.
Oh yeah, I got caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's good.
Totally.
How did Jessica respond?
It's good, actually.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be better to ask her that now, what she was actually feeling. But
Yeah.
at the time, she jumped right into, "Hey Maggie, mommy's here," and then she ran across the street, and then I actually, figured it out. So
Cool.
it was good.
It's a good story.
It's fun. It was
Memories
totally. Yep.
to share with a counselor
Maybe.
when they're older.
Maybe. Cool. Well, hey, talk to us about what is the word upshot mean? We mentioned it a little bit earlier, Shane, but like let's talk about let's get into this a little bit. Upshot.
Yeah.
This is a podcast for dads who try, so there's some implications there, but there may be other men who haven't heard this word before.
Yeah.
When you Googled it,
Yeah,
what did you learn?
which I did.
Yeah.
Googled it multiple.
What did you learn and what have you thought about?
I try to find like the most simple definition so that I can remember it, because if it's not simple, I won't remember it. And so, that song. And so I've been humming the song in my head to help me remember. The
Yeah.
Final Countdown. You know that song?
Uh-huh.
This is the
I
Final
won't sing it,
Countdown.
but yes.
Neither will I. Thank you for not asking me to sing it, because that's when the Upshot podcast would have ended. So the Final Countdown, it's really like it's the final outcome. It's like of all of my actions, life, decisions, purpose, dreams, like all of it. It's the end result, the final outcome. What is the thing that happens as a result of everything that I've done?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's my Shane definition.
Yeah, I like it. The one that resonates with me, it's the eventual outcome.
Yeah.
What's the end story? What is the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a cool phrase to use because it's going to happen one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless if I know of it, think of it, care about it, there is an eventual. I like using the word eventual.
Yeah.
Like it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this whole thing's about what's the outcome of being a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you thought about that?
Sure.
And talked with other men about that?
Well, I think, it's really important for fathers, for men, husbands to embrace this idea that, you talk about eventually there's going to be something, this final outcome, the eventual outcome, that no matter how often we may fail or get off track or have regrets with some of the decisions that we've made, like our Heavenly Father is bigger. Right. And I mean, I think we as men can get really overwhelmed with thinking like it's all on me. I am the only father to my children. I'm the one person that gets this shot. No one else can be the father to my children. It's my role. And so if you sit on that and think about that, it can be extremely overwhelming, especially when you start to rehearse or think about all of those moments that I've left Matthew at a park and he's running after the fan. Like, if you were to ask me, hey, Shane, what is the eventual outcome of Matthew after that experience? I'm like, it's not very good. But yet I can lean into this idea that my Heavenly Father is bigger than that. And my Heavenly Father has this plan for Matthew that is good, that I may not know the eventual outcome, but I can trust him with the outcome and know that I'm part of this. I get to participate in forming this outcome, but knowing that I can't screw it up.
Yeah.
Beyond what my Heavenly Father can do or overcome. And so once I was able to like fully embrace that, it gave me freedom to really think about and pursue and not be paralyzed that I'm going to mess this whole thing up. And so my wife and I, when we were a young family with our 4 little boys, we wanted the outcome to be really simple, something that we could communicate with consistency and clarity and repeat over and over again and develop rhythms in our family that reinforced it, that our kids could say it, was really, we just wanted to love God and love people. I mean, I think it's in Galatians 5 where Paul talks about like the only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love, right? And that's like, so what does it look like for our family, for myself, for my wife, for my children to express their faith through love? And so we would come up with silly ways of consistently showing our kids, talking to our kids, having conversations around what does it look like to love God and what does it look like to love people. And so when you talk about an eventual outcome, my upshot as a husband, as a father, as a, thinking about our family, thinking about other people, is I want the final outcome to be a place where we love God and love others well.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think similar to ours, I haven't articulated it in that same way. Jess and I have wrestled with like just family, like what are we building as a family?
Yeah.
And, we're reading a book right now. It's called Parenting. It's by Andy Stanley and his wife, Sandra. Have you read it?
No,
Okay.
I bought it. Does that count?
I don't know. No, it doesn't count.
There's a part of me that thinks it does because
Okay.
it's in my Kindle library.
Good job, Shane.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So, we're still reading it, but their whole thing is like, what is getting it? What is the it and getting it right in parenting? What does all that mean? And so that's challenging us a little bit right now, or giving us some conversation, some guides to having the conversation. But pre this book, we've just thought about how we're building our family. What is the culture of our family going to be? And how do we identify that? And how are we going to mark that? So we've defined it with like 5 values for our family.
That's great.
And I think that bleeds into my upshot as a father. Like at the end of the day, at the end of my days, like I hope my kids can stand at my funeral and say, hey, our dad was taught us these 5 things.
So what
what
are they?
Here they are. It's you're loved. So similar to yours.
Oh, that's a good one.
Hey, God loves us, therefore we love each other, right? So we know we are loved.
That's great.
And because of that, we can do these other 4 values. And so the other 4 are more of a doing. It's like receiving love and therefore practicing love, but also doing. So one of them is everyone's a friend. Our home and our family is going to be a place where we value relationships and treat everybody as a friend. The next one, and they're not in any particular order, we do hard things. And that's specific for me too, as I already told you, like prone to take the path of least resistance. How do we find resistance and lean into it? And that's played out a lot too. Like Maggie specifically, she's always like, it's too hard. I'm like, oh, that's hard, but you get to do hard things. Yeah. Because you're strong, you're brave. You can get help.
Yeah. Or you have what it takes.
You have what it takes. Yep. And so that's been a really cool lesson to help teach a 3-year-old. Another one is that we make it fun. And we talked about that too. Yeah. We're going to have fun. We can have fun doing the mundane things that it can either zap all of our energy, the nightly routines, the bedtime, the bath time, the cleaning up, constant food off the floor, whatever it looks like, the laundry, or we can make it fun. We can have fun along the way. And then the last one's go big. We want to go big. So that's a little Bob Goffish,
Sure.
you know, but,
Yep.
and it's limited to our resources,
Yeah.
but how do we just unlock some imagination around celebrating, around, you know, and that's like, God is abundant. Like there's an abundance to who God is and what he gives us and generosity. And so how do we just explore just bigness in the way that we celebrate one another, in the way that we dream about what we're going to accomplish, in the way that we pray? Like, how do we just challenge ourselves to think, to get to go bigger?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I love
So
those.
those are our kind of family values, and wrapping that into an upshot is, I'm still on that journey, but
Sure.
that's, you know, that's where we're at.
So I love like the foundational value, that very first one you said, that you are loved. So tell me, as a father, how do you enforce and reinforce that message to your daughters over and over again? You are loved, you are loved. I mean, you could say it consistently, continuously,
Yeah.
but it usually takes more than just telling them over and over again, you are loved. What does that look like?
Yeah. I think of two things. We try to tell them frequently, often, but every night when we pray, part of our nightly prayer, it's a bit similar, but it's like, hey, because we are loved, help us to love and trust you too every day. May we grow in our love and trust for you. That's a significant part of our prayer together as a family. But outside of that, what I'm awakening to as a dad right now is the reality that we all have emotional needs, and including myself. This has been a journey for me in the last 6 months, 9 months, and the greatest way, one of the greatest ways I can show up for my family, specifically 3 women, is like to pay attention to what are the emotional needs that they have, and they're entitled to those needs, just as they are entitled to food and water and clothing, and we never shame anybody for saying, hey, I'm thirsty. So if my daughter's like, hey, I'm feeling this way, then it's like, yeah, okay, you're feeling sad, so that's okay.
It's good.
And let's talk about that, and let me sit with you in that. Or you're angry at me, that's okay, be angry at me. But so I'm trying to pay more attention to what are their emotions and what are their emotional needs in this moment. Do they need affirmation? Do they just need a hug? Do they need like attention? Do they need to laugh? Do they need to be whatever? Do they just take a nap? Like, but it's like, and it all comes back from that idea that you mentioned earlier on. It's like presence. How am I paying attention to what's going on in their lives? Therefore, what do they need, and how am I showing up best for them? Man,
that's fantastic. I think just sitting across from you and listening to you talk about these values and the way you guys live them out, like, keep it up. And, you're off to a great start with those girls. And I mean, I think you can anticipate seeing your upshot realized just by what you're doing today. Don't stop. It's impressive. I'm encouraged just sitting across from you and listening to you talk about these things.
Well, that means a lot.
Yeah. Good little connection moment.
You look deeply into my eyes.
Yep.
Okay.
All the time,
we
Kyle.
had a good moment there.
Yep.
Well, I don't know how long we're going to go, but
what time is it?
I think another important piece of this conversation, Shane, is for somebody who hasn't thought about this. You kind of mentioned it as you kind of considered your upshot as a family and the journey you went on there. There may be guys out there, there's stereotypes for fathers right now.
Sure.
Right? And that looks like, king of the hill, sitting in the backyard, we drink beer by the fence, and got our driveway buddies, and mom's running the house with the children, and we go to work, we pay the bills, we've done our job.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a reality where a lot of guys get into fatherhood with some stereotypes in mind. But for the dad who maybe this is a new idea, or they're tired of doing it in a way, whether it's that way or whatever, they want to begin considering their upshot. What would you say to that guy?
This is a very good question. You know, you hear somebody else talk about it's obvious that you've given this some thought. That you can tell that you and Jessica have sat down and really thought through these 5 values. And they're powerful values. They're values that I would embrace and be excited to pursue as part of the Watson family if I was, in that world with you. And so I think some dads can listen to it and just be like overwhelmed or worried about, gosh, I have to pick 5 really good values and they have to sound amazing before I can even get started. Or it has to look really good on a framed piece of art in my living room that when people come over, I can say, yes, this is the Upshot, or these are the values that my family lives for. And I would tell men, dads who are thinking of this idea of what is their Upshot, just start somewhere. Do actions. Don't overthink, hey, what are the words we're going to use? But just give it something a try today. And then schedule time to have conversations with your spouse, or just individually to reflect on, hey, is this working? Am I excited about this? Is this giving me energy? So long story short, just start somewhere. Don't overthink it. I mean, quite frankly, love God, love people is not some new idea that Elaine and I came up with.
Totally.
And when it comes to being a dad, you are especially when your kids are young, you are their hero. You are your daughter's Hulk. And you don't have to come up with powerful phrases to get your kids to buy into you and your idea as parents, especially when they're young. So my encouragement to men is just start somewhere and don't overthink the process. Does that make sense?
It's awesome.
Yeah. What about you? What
That's
advice
great.
would you have for someone?
I think about what I would say to myself 4 years ago, because I went through this process and I looked around. I've got a baby in my arms and I'm thinking about, who am I right now? And there's a little bit of that. It's not rock bottom, because I wasn't into anything that's going to ruin my life necessarily, but I wasn't being intentional with who I was. And so there was a moment or a season where I had to really pay attention to, if I don't start being intentional or start paying attention to my life right now, then what's going to happen to this little girl? What is she going to grow up with as a dad? Yeah. And there will be an eventual outcome. And am I okay with that?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even about messing her up. It was just my actions, my rhythms, the life I'm leading right now, what did not align with my dreams and goals for her.
That's good.
And so, that I had to confront that with myself first. And so it was almost like, if it was over today, what would people say? Here's Kyle's legacy, or here's who Kyle was. What will people say about me today? And am I okay with that? Probably not.
Yeah, I think a great exercise for men that are trying to process those questions is write your own eulogy. Yeah. It's really hard to go through this exercise, but it will help you clarify your Upshot. What would first of all, if you were to die today, what would be said in your eulogy?
You need to do it twice.
Yeah. And then what do you wish they would say in your eulogy?
Yep.
And then another question to piggyback off of that, and this is going back to the power of community. Who do you want your pallbearers to be?
Yep.
Who are the guys or the women that, they're going to say, I'm carrying that guy's casket because of what he's done in my life.
Yep.
So.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a similar exercise about a year ago, wrote my eulogy, and had some moments where we were going through a season of coming out of some loneliness and really being intentional. God, here's what I'm praying for. And I was going big. Hey, I need stronger relationships, specifically around other men and fathers. And I need some mentors. And it was like a year-long journey of praying, chasing, seeking, cultivating at the time, I couldn't tell you who my pallbearers would be. My brothers, my family, the people who have to be there.
The defaults, right?
Yeah, the defaults.
Well, they don't have a choice.
They didn't get drafted they're the scrubs, but here they are, and versus now, I think there's some guys who would raise their hand and God's given me that. and he's led me into these relationships. And so I think what you're saying is really powerful. If we would look at it today, who are those people and what is the upshot versus, man, I'm not okay with that, and here's what I want it to be.
Yeah.
Great starting place for somebody who's never thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then don't overthink it. Start small.
Yeah.
Just do something.
And it will grow.
Yeah, 100%.
It will grow.
Yeah,
It will snowball.
And I think it's important. Like, I think people can listen to this and still get like a little bit overwhelmed. Like, that's a lot of like thinking through your upshot, your values, writing my eulogy, what I want to be known for, and my experience in community. Like, this can be overwhelming. And I think it's important to remind, people that are listening in, if anyone chooses to listen in, that like sometimes we're going to speak in the ideal, but there's always the real.
Totally.
Like, remember, Matthew was screaming, running after my van. Like, life is messy. We're going to get this wrong. Don't give up. Start somewhere.
Yeah. So what's a book, resource, podcast, something that you're maybe familiar with reading, listening to, doing right now that could help, another person, another guy who's considering their upshot?
Well, I don't know yet if this is going to be a good one. I just bought this book. It's not the parenting.
Parenting?
One.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to buy books and not necessarily start or finish them because there's just so many great books. I have my 2 oldest boys are in college, and so hopefully they make it through college, first of all. But John Eldredge is an author that's had some impact on my life. I know some of the stuff that he writes creates some tension for men, but there's a book that is called Killing Lions. It's a book where it's a series of conversations between John Eldredge and his son Sam as he's transitioning into adulthood. And it's just all these conversations around manhood and a variety of topics, from sex to marriage to relationships to career. And it's almost like this book is giving you an opportunity to be a fly on the wall on conversations that this man who has impacted my life through his teachings and his writings is having with his son. And so I just started reading it, and it's really had me thinking about some of these conversations that I'm hopefully going to have with my college-age sons as they continue this adventure into adulthood and manhood and forging their own path.
Do you think they'll read it with you?
I don't know. I like I said, I'm early on in this book.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a book that I'm going to hand it to them or if this is a book that we're going to read together. I don't know, or if it's just a book that's just going to give me some clarity and insight into how I would navigate some of these conversations myself. Yeah. So, to be determined. So ask me about this in a future podcast if there is a future episode.
No, I would love to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow up on that one.
Yeah. And then
what's it called? Killing Lions?
Killing Lions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's a book, podcast, article that is...
So a little non-conventional. I mean, I'm reading the parenting book, so that's helpful. But something I'm doing right now is I've made some friends online. It's going to sound weird.
Kyle's making friends.
I made friends online.
Good job, Kyle.
Through LinkedIn. Did you know you can make friends through LinkedIn?
Do you know if these are real people?
They are real people.
Where do they live?
Each other's phone numbers.
Oh, that's scary.
But they're all over the place.
Scary. Don't give them my phone number, please.
Yeah. But it's a group of guys, and they've started this kind of initiative, this thing called Wild in the Woods.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to get men together to recover a little bit of like, what does it look like to be a man today?
Yeah.
Right. And, there's nothing specific to it other than we do some 30-day sprints. I call them a sprint. Other people call them a challenge. But it's a 30-day sprint of progress over perfection. I'm gonna commit to 7 things together within this community.
Yeah.
And that looks like, a daily exercise, silence, a reading, time outside, no sweets, no substances stronger than caffeine. And then there's a check-in that engages something that I'm feeling today.
Yeah.
Something I'm grateful for. And this whole thing has been a journey of so I'm challenging myself to do hard things or to commit to things that this person I want to be, while also becoming more aware of what am I feeling.
Yeah.
And I have to share this with a bunch of new online friends.
Random dudes off LinkedIn.
Yep.
Wild in the woods.
And Wild in the Woods. So if you're, that has been a different type of resource, but it's exposed me to other men, other fathers who are juggling things like career, calling,
Yeah.
fatherhood, marriage, dating, whatever, all the elements of that we deal with as men, and exploring that together. It's been fun.
Man, I love that. So if there's a guy that's listening in that says, I want to experience a group of guys like Kyle's experiencing in that Wild in the Woods group,
Yeah.
How would you encourage them to get started? Where do they start?
Yeah. Just reach out to me, and then I'll connect you. Yeah, I'll introduce you to my LinkedIn friends.
Yeah.
Or I'll show you how you can do that on your own, or I'll invite you, whatever it looks
I'll
like.
introduce you to my LinkedIn friends.
Yeah. There's so many ways to do this, Shane. Like, we have other groups too,
Sure.
for other men to join a part of. So it really depends on like what are you looking for.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely a place for you to surround yourself with other men who are trying to work on their upshot too.
Yeah.
And I think every guy needs that. You talked about it from the beginning. That's part of your purpose, is an invitation. You're living in a way that you're inviting men to deeper and deeper relationships with one another, and ultimately towards the end of following Jesus. And like, we can help people navigate that for sure.
That's good.
So, just as we wrap here, what can people look forward to here, Shane, if they continue to wanting to listen to a podcast where we're having conversations? What do you think people are going to look forward to hearing in coming episodes?
Was this question on my sheet? That's a
not on the
terrifying
sheet.
question. I don't know what they can look forward to. Hopefully hopefully they'll laugh.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll create a lot of like them too moments. What I mean by that is like somebody that's listening in who might be a dad who's just embarrassed or is frustrated or discouraged by some mess that he's stuck in, or a decision that he's made, or a regret that he has, and like he will say to himself, I'm not the only one. Mm-hmm. And there's power in like in having, a sense of normalcy. Like, these challenges that I face on a daily basis aren't just my challenges.
Yeah.
And that along the way, that maybe we'll introduce some ideas, some thought process, provide some resources that will really help these men who are working on trying and thinking through what it looks like to create, develop, and live towards an upshot. Yeah. What about you?
That's cool. Well, I think another piece to that, to add to it, is hopefully we get some other voices in here.
You mean some of your LinkedIn friends?
Yeah, maybe some of my LinkedIn friends, some of my IRL friends.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, and we can get some other guys who maybe have some experiences to share, maybe some level of expertise or thought around specific aspects of manhood, fatherhood, that we can all learn from and grow in together. So,
because we're not the professionals.
No, we are not. What makes a father a professional father?
This is a great
You have to have so
question.
many kids?
Bestseller selling author.
Okay.
It's not so many kids, because if it is, then I'd be a professional.
You're professional. So,
yeah.
Cool. Hey, Shane, it's been good, man.
Yeah, thanks for time that we get to spend together. I'm looking forward to our future conversations.
All right.
We got to come up with like some sort of silly way to end this thing. Bye. No, we can't do bye, because that'll be like a lasting impression that is not positive. So we'll figure this out.
Okay.
We'll come up with a fun way to end our episodes. But guys, thanks for tuning in. Dads, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Upshot. Wherever you are, Kyle and I hope you got something out of it. Know that you're not alone in this journey called fatherhood. And we want to encourage you to hit that like button, subscribe button, or whatever button is in front of you with the technology you're using. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on The Upshot.